Ryan Holiday recently said a strange thing in his daily Stoic newsletter. It began by talking about the people Marcus Aurelius laments meeting each day: the bitter, the stupid, the jealous, the petty. Then it continues. Throughout the book, Marcus mentions other undesirables: the shameless, the evil, the greedy, the ignorant, the manipulative. Today we could still add others: anti-vaxxers, racists, polluters, rage profiteers, reality television stars, trolls, and on and on. I wanted to make this video as I think lumping the anti-vaxxers in here with other undesirables is a very short-sighted and dangerous point. By the way, I appreciate and respect Ryan Holiday for his work and his energy. I'm a fan of his. This is just constructive criticism. And my criticism is that he shares his idea of Stoicism through the lens of contemporary events that could very well be propaganda. From my angle, he looks like someone convinced that Agrippa's ship capsized due to sheer bad luck and it had nothing to do with Nero. In one email, he mentions Ukraine's president as a beacon of stoic courage. In Discipline is Destiny, he mentions Trump specifically as an example of power corrupting. I'm not saying this isn't true. I'm saying we're also ignoring that the other guy has a long history of sniffing and groping, and there seems to be a lack of criticism of that. This entire system is rotten, and all sides are filled with monsters and horrible people. If you're attacking one side and ignoring the transgressions of the other, it usually means you're falling into tribalism. This is a natural and unfortunate thing for the general population, but for a thought leader when judging your impressions, I think Ryan could do better. For example, the same government that told you that the unvaccinated were in for a winter of death and suffering is the same government behind the Tuskegee experiment, MK Ultra, and COINTELPRO, to name a few confirmed conspiracies. You can look these up on your own, but the point is, these were actions taken by the American government against its citizens. To group anti-vaxxers as some racist, misogynistic group like my prime minister did, simply because they aren't very trusting of a notoriously untrustworthy industry, seems kind of dumb to me. I'm not here to say what my opinion is on all this. All that I know is that after studying history and marketing for most of my life, I know propaganda when I see it. I don't have an opinion on the war happening right now. How could you trust any of the information that's being fed to you? If you really think the government that has lied and gaslit you, not just for the last 3 years, but since its inception, all of a sudden started telling the truth because this time the problem is serious? If you want to talk about climate change and don't mention nuclear energy as a solution, then I'm afraid the entire purpose of talking about climate change is simply to push an agenda. If that nuclear conversation isn't happening, this whole thing is a show. If you believe any messaging from these propaganda outlets without taking into account how those 2 weeks to flatten the curve went, then I'm afraid you aren't thinking critically. Again, I love Ryan Holiday. His work is incredible, and I recommend everyone subscribe to the Daily Stoic newsletter. My criticism is simply that we are bombarded by fake information from all sides, and trying to explain contemporary events as if we aren't being gaslit and manipulated by the powers that be every chance they can is lacking in critical thinking. I think it's better to just use examples of Stoicism in those whose story has already finished, or those who we can be reasonably certain aren't just propaganda.